because I was at the printing publisher place instead. So anyway, kind of snuck up, tried a couple strings on some speakers, and unfortunately you're now stuck with me. So I'm going to give you what I call my dog and pony show. Now Jason's going to be the dog, and Tim's going to be the pony, and they're both going to get up and sing and dance for you, all right? Okay, let's give them a hand. They actually sound receptive to that.
No? What?
I thought I'd get like crickets. Okay, so instead you'll get me, all right? So I'm bringing you my abbreviated version of what I call my Confederate traveling museum. Really? This is what you do when you're a business meeting or something? Anyway, I don't care. Let your phones ring. I got a bunch of artifacts I've inherited from my family. I didn't buy any of this. I don't go by and collect Civil War memorabilia, honestly, or military stuff. But I've been lucky my family kept this stuff in the family. They were smart enough not to pitch it into estate sales, and we still got this stuff today. So I'll just kind of give you a little bit of it, and when we get to one part, when I go through the dog and pony show, as I call it, then you can come up and take a closer look at this stuff. If you could, don't touch it. It's really old and fragile, all right? Just kind of look, all right? We'll start with some cool things, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. How many of you guys have seen this dog and pony show I do already? Anybody here? Nobody?
You mean this particular dog and pony?
Yeah, this particular one. What I call my traveling museum.
Labrador dog?
I've got a big display case I set up. I mean, it's got all kinds of stuff on it that was used by my guys in the war. Okay, so this is, it's up at the top of my favorite of things I've got, right? This sword belonged to, really had been like a great-great-great uncle, the brother to one of my great-great-grandfathers. His name was Joe Watkins Hayden, and he was attended BMI, and he was class of 1856. And this was his BMI cadet sword. And this is a BMI cadet sword. It's really called a light artillery saber. And you can look real close up in here, but it's made by Ames Manufacturing out of Chicopee, Massachusetts. And Ames Manufacturing was, you can search on Ames Manufacturing, they'll still come up. They don't actually exist. But they were the official supplier of swords to VMI and West Point. Now Joel then, this is his sword, right? He carried this into war, and it was with him, on him, when he was killed defending Petersburg in November of '64. So pretty cool, prized treasure. And then, now what he was in the, he was in the 7th Virginia Infantry, 7th Virginia Cavalry, and he was a first lieutenant. He entered the war as a first lieutenant, and he died in the war as a first lieutenant. For whatever reason, he didn't move up the chain, but he was really what was called a field and staff officer. He was the adjutant of the 7th Virginia Cavalry. But them boys fought, them field and staff guys are out there on the lines, because he had 3 horses shot out from under him, and he was shot 3 times himself, the 3rd time being fatal, right? But all through the war, he lost horses. I've got records of where his horse was appraised and he was paid $500 Confederate for the loss of his horse, stuff like that. But it's a VMI cadet sword that actually saw combat, and I know he fought. Where he got killed, how he got killed was Grant was trying to encircle that south side of Petersburg. It was real close to the end of the fall of Petersburg, and I think it was I can't remember who was in command, but the Confederate boys did a cavalry charge that stopped them Yankees, and those Yankees never did get the town completely encircled, and indeed that was Lee's escape route out of there. But he was shot in the foot, which you wouldn't think would be fatal. But I think that boy saw the writing on the walls, and he said, nope, you're not taking my foot off. And he actually was shot October 19th of '64 and died on like November 17th from that wound. But if he'd have let him take his foot, he probably would have lived through the deal, you know. But that's kind of a prized family possession. That's a scabbard, a lot of patina to it. Very cool, right?
Very cool.
All right, let's see here. What do we got next? I'll lay it out. The sword knot was not on it. Me and my brother added that, right? Technically, that's my brother's sword. Now this belonged to my great-great-grandfather, Captain Alfred Almond Yateman. And he was a captain of Company K, 11th Virginia Infantry. It's pretty cool. You got to look hard, but because a lot of it's faded away, but there's a lot of really ornate scrolling that's all up and down this blade. And there's nicks and cuts and all kinds of junk in it. But this sword, and I don't know if it's a sword or a saber. It is curved, so I guess I can call it a little bit of a saber. This was caught in a fire, house fire, that he was living in at the time after the war. And there's a mansion, I think it's called Rosewell in Virginia, and you can search for Rosewell. And all the brick walls are there, but this thing burned and gutted out. Now that was a house that belonged to his sister and her husband, and he was living with them after the war. That house burned, and this sword was in that fire. And so I don't know, somebody lacquered it black on the scabbard and did a little black lacquering up here. I don't know, they probably replaced these grips, so I don't know what those grips would have looked like in the war. It almost looked like it could have been wood grips, whereas this saber has the leather with the wire braid wrapped around it, you know? So maybe, you know, it's pretty close to the way it was, other than I know the black lacquer wasn't on there. But it's a pretty cool sword. I don't know, I can't tell who it's made by because of that black lacquer that's over top of it. But it's pretty cool. It's got the handguard and stuff, been a little better. Probably this saber wasn't optimal for cab duty because of the no handguard, but it was a sword and that's what he went to war with, you know. So we'll lay this sucker up here. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Lay it out for you. A couple other really cool things up here. And this is, I need to help James find this, and maybe you can look at it a little bit, but if you look real close on this, this is what's called a muster roll, and it belonged to Captain Yateman, and it says Captain A.A. Yateman, or it says A.A. Yateman, Captain, Company K, 11th Virginia Volunteers, 1861. This is the record of his company. It lists all his officers, captain, lieutenants, then it lists all his sergeants. He had 4 sergeants. And it lists all his corporals. He had 4 corporals at least. And then it lists all his privates. And I kind of I scanned these and they're on his PowerPoint here, but you know, you can see privates, you know, and it was around 100 men total, you know. I don't remember what the count is, but you know, it does show the hierarchy of his command staff and his non-coms. You know, it's pretty cool. All his guys' names are in there. Kind of shows where they're camped, shows what guys were paid, what kind of clothing and equipment they were issued, food. It's pretty neat stuff. Now, it only goes about maybe halfway into there, and then he was shot in the head, and bing, and I inherited that, and I filtered on down. But that's super cool. I don't really like to open it. That's why I did get it open. I scanned a few pages, and maybe you can glance at his laptop when we get done here, and you can walk up and look around. This thing here, super cool. I know it's an old dead flower, right? This flower is from, God, it kills me. It's from Robert E. Lee's funeral and grave. And my great-great-grandmother, Joe Hayden's mom, was a flower bearer at Lee's funeral procession. And so she took one of them flowers, pressed it in that book, and then put it in this frame. And that's where it's been since, you know, when he passed away, 1870, 63, 73. How long did Lee make it after the war? Yeah, something like that. But that is from Robert E. Lee's flower. And you don't know a lot about it other than what it says on the back. I can't prove that's where it came from, but my family didn't lie. You know, they liked and treasured this a lot. We still do, you know. So that's pretty cool, and you may come up and take a look at that. Next, I got a lot of Confederate money here. You know, if you don't mind, don't handle it. If you wanted to look, turn it over, you can or something, you know. What the heck does that say? But, let's look at the back of some of this stuff. This is all original Confederate money. It's not the stuff they print up nowadays or whatever. There's clear up to a $500 bill. And if you kind of look, too, some of it clearly says CSA money. Some of it's like state of North Carolina money. The county of Bedford, 50 cents. There was all kinds of money in the South in those days, issued by banks, issued by counties, issued by states, and issued by the CSA. What's that?
They did that in North also.
Yeah.
It wasn't until about 1900 they started standardizing.
Really, yeah, standardize that stuff. So that's pretty cool. But
The bank folded up all the money with them.
yeah, they didn't control it all then. Look at us now that they do, right? So anyway, a lot of this stuff was came out of my aunt's house in Virginia, in Roanoke, Virginia, and where she lived and died her whole days, and she knew Captain Yateman and all kinds of crazy stuff. But so she had all this stuff in her house, and when she died in like '03, got back to her, got it back to here, you know. But her name was Elizabeth Llewellyn, but we called her Libu. I think that was something my dad called her when he was a kid because he couldn't say Elizabeth, Libu, you know. So anyway, Aunt Libu sent this money to my dad. His name was John P. Yateman, but he went by Jack, and they all called him Jackie. So on September 28, 52, my Aunt Libu sent all this Confederate money to him. Actually, I got more in this book here. That's just all the Confederate stuff. But, it doesn't matter. But I got her letter here, and it says, this is 1952, she sends them this stuff, right? Here are the Confederate notes I said I'd send you. Be careful of them for 2 reasons. They are very old, thin, and brittle, and they are most valuable and will grow more each year. I read in the Saturday Evening Post of last February 23rd advising people to take care of any they had. Anyway, remember they said, hold on to your Confederate money, one day it'll be worth a lot, right? So that was her message she was conveying to my dad. But pretty cool. Let me see if there's anything else there. Also put blah blah blah, some Spanish dollars. Okay, to go back to the Confederate money, the notes of 1861 to 62 are more valuable than those of a later date. I put in 1 or 2 county notes of the earlier date. With love. Oh, that was my Aunt Josie. Josephine sent that. That's bizarre. I thought it was Libu. Never mind. Anyway, Aunt Josie. Josie was Libu's sister. So, kind of cool stuff, you know. Other than that, to round out the deal, I've actually got a musket and a Civil War period musket, but it wasn't used in war. It was a civilian rifle. Came off one of these guys' farms. I think one was off the Hayden farm, one was off the out of the Yateman place, but it's a double barrel shotgun, and the other one's really a civilian hunting rifle, had the half stock and all that, but I didn't drag those out. I just thought, well, I'll give you a couple examples of weapons used in the war. These guns are all replicas, but I thought you guys might like them. I just kind of acquired this lately and just used it for the first time ever this last weekend. That's a Sharps carbine. It's for cavalry. Pretty cool. Big pain in the butt to clean. I cleaned it for the first time the other day, man. You're taking pull pins, you get this block out, and then you really can't hardly pour water down in the barrel without getting it all over the rest of the gun. And it took me an hour jacking with it. I go, how did he ever do that in the field? You know? I don't know. But it is a super cool gun, you know? They used a linen cartridge. It was breech loader. You shove it in there, boom, link that up, it cut that end off of that linen, and bam, you know, put your cap on and you were ready, right? So it's kind of cool. This is one of my more favorite pieces. This is a 1842 Springfield smoothbore. It's a 69 caliber. It's not rifled. Pretty much a shotgun. And they shot a lot of buck and ball out of these. You know, one big ball, 3 double aught bucks all in the same wad. It's just scatter gun, you know. But pretty cool. I've never live fired it, but it's easy to clean and all that good stuff, at least, although it's very long. But a lot of Confederates had these smooth bores, especially at the beginning of the war. They're not very accurate. You needed to get close, you know. If you're up against another opposing line that had rifle muskets, you were probably toast with this thing, you know. But they had a bunch of them, probably both sides, near the beginning of the war. This thing here, I don't know, they claim it to be a favorite back here in the Western Theater. This is the 1841 Mississippi. It's 58 caliber and it is rifled, so it's accurate, man. I've live fired this one. It shoots pretty straight, you know. This kind of, a lot of these were used in the Mexican-American War, and they were still around, you know, they were still in arsenals and all kinds of places. You know, I don't know how much they were used back east. I've heard they were used.
Percussion, Larry?
Yeah, they're all
Right.
percussion caps.
Okay.
Just drop the cap on right there.
Yep.
They were built from the beginning as a percussion, you know, musket. So, but anyway, it's pretty cool. You know, good stuff there. So I don't know. You know, I got some other things. At last, then we'll wrap up. We can take our break, and if you want to mosey by. Reed Simpson is a pilot, flies for the Confederate Air Force, right?
No.
The Commemorative Air Force.
No.
Oh, he's working his way into
I
it.
just told you about, that was another group.
Oh, I thought maybe you were with them boys, but he's into all that and period history. So him and I have been talking about this C-47, AC-47 gunship. Spooky, that's right. And they use this C-47 in Nam, and it had the 20 millimeter
3762
millimeter.
cannons.
Yeah, flies the
inside.
circle.
Yeah, it was a fire breather, you know.
Yeah.
What they call
But
it.
I told him I had an
Puffin' Magic
uncle.
Dragon.
Yeah,
When I was over, that's what they call it, Puffin' Magic Dragon.
yeah,
They wrote
yeah.
songs
You
about it.
probably know Spooky then, you know. But so I told him I had an uncle, Herb Gillum from Virginia, and he was a C-47 pilot. And there's Chinese money here and Japanese money. And I didn't bring it, but I got a Jap diary that he stole off some poor dead Jap. But even got some photographs of that dead Jap's wife, as a matter of fact. But there is some Chinese money in there, and that came from World War II because he was a hump pilot flying China, Burma, India.
Oh, man, that's
So-
something.
Right. James, let me see.